Busters Radio.
Okay, well, guess what, Steve?
What?
I got good news.
All right.
That was a perfect segue into our next segment, our first segment of the morning on what's right and what's left. This one is going to be on foreign affairs. Hello, everybody. This is Bob Palumbo on the right, WCSB-FM. The show is called Marketplace of Ideas. Today we're having a special event, and my buddy Steve Trainer here on the left, we are going to have a discussion about
What's right?
and what's left.
All right, and I hope there's some donuts left because I'm getting hungry.
Well, Steve, listen, and what my idea today was that we would try to untangle some of the mess out there when people talk about the country moving to the right and moving to the left with regards to a couple of different issues. One would be foreign policy, one would be economic issues, and one would be social issues. So first up on the agenda, let's talk a little bit about what is the country doing? Is it moving to the right? Or is it moving to the left?
All right.
With regards to foreign policy, and as I mentioned before, I thought we should use a certain song as a kind of a reminder to keep ourselves on track. A kind of a theme for the what's right, what's left thing that we're doing today. The Ray Charles song, "Compared to What," would be just to keep us on the same track.
Possession is the motivation, messing up the whole damn nation. Looks like we always end up in a rut. Everybody now trying to make it real compared to what.
Okay, good song for this, huh?
He's the father of rhythm and blues.
Yeah. So anyway, Steve, that's the thing that I want to say, is that before we get into this, I want to ask you if your opinion, if in foreign affairs, if the country is moving to the left or to the right.
Well,
I want you to be able to give me some kind of a anchor, something to tie it to as a point in time, or some kind of a measuring stick that you can, not just making a random comment.
Okay. There was a plan that was proposed, and the object of the plan, there was two main points in this plan. The steps of this plan were to restore good relations with the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is becoming, of course, increasingly hostile to the West, and also to take measures to convince Iran that Israel could be their friend and ally. Would you vote for that person?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with that statement in a vacuum, but I'm sure before I would vote for it.
Not in a vacuum. I'm talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, I would be okay with that statement.
Do you think that conservatives would be okay that we should restore, and I'm quoting now from this president's
Go ahead. Say
policy,
the statement again.
Take steps to restore good relations with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and also to take measures to convince Iran that Israel could become their friend and ally. That was a guy by the name of President Ronald Reagan.
Right.
That was his plan. My point is,
it's a good generic
we have
statement.
moved to the right.
It's a good,
Since the Reagan years, when Reagan wanted to do exactly the opposite of what Republicans today want to go to war with Iran. We want to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, which international peacekeeping people and experts have said, and you're going to say, well, other experts have said differently, but there's doubt that they're actually making a nuclear weapon. But for some reason, America's conservative opinion today is that nobody but us should have nuclear weapons. So I think we've moved way to the right.
Okay, well, first of all, I would just say this. If you want to measure it as from Reagan, that's fine. But, and I would say even if you measure from Reagan to Obama, okay, and, somebody basically asking pretty please if we can have our drone back, okay, I would say we've moved to the left.
Hey,
okay, in the last 3 years, we've moved to the left. But let me just go back and say one thing, okay? And I'll go back to this from time to time during the news show. I like to when I try to interpret where we've gone as a country, whether we've moved to the right or to the left, I often like to look back and see what the founders their original intentions were for ourselves. Okay, and the founders were big on peace through strength. You know, they didn't think we should be out there punching people in the nose and making them mad. They kind of held what they called a separatist view, not necessarily isolationist. That would be a bridge too far. They were separatists in their views. In other words, we should try to be friendly with everybody, keep the doors open to commerce with everybody, and cooperation with everybody. Okay, but at the same time, we should let them know that we are ready for war at a minute's notice to defend ourselves. So if you think you're going to punch us in the eye, you should be prepared to get punched back, okay? So they were separatists, not isolationists. So when I look at that, I say this country has moved way to the left. And because the founders were very much against such things as favored nation status. The founders were against such things as having alliances with other countries in Europe and Mexico and Canada and all that. They said you should never form an alliance with another nation at the expense of others because that makes bad feelings around the world. And it certainly has. So if you look at what the founders prescribed and where we are today, we've moved way to the left, Steve.
Okay, well, you're talking about something that happened over 230 years ago.
No, well,
yeah, that's when the founding fathers lived.
Yeah, but the steps.
I'm just saying, just for
I'm
historical
using
context,
right?
200. Okay, and I'm not going to disagree with anything you said. On the other hand, we've got a pendulum swinging back and forth through the decades.
Well, yeah, there's been moves to the left and the right throughout time. You know, I mean.
So let me ask you this to move a little bit closer to our lifetime. How about this? Would a conservative have this viewpoint? If there was a communist fighting senator, and that senator would the president undermine that? Would he not let him have access to government documents? Would he support Democrats who were against this Republican senator who was rooting out communists in the government? Well, of course not. But that's exactly what President Eisenhower did in 1954 to Senator McCarthy. He also believed that another thing that conservatives love to support is defense spending. President Eisenhower cut the budget, and where he cut the budget was in defense spending. One of the things he did was he cut back the Army back to 8 divisions in the late 50s, and this was completely contrary to the conservative viewpoint now, where we should expand our military, make it even stronger at the expense of social programs. So just from the 50s when we were young to now, I'd say it's obvious we've moved way to the right.
Okay, well, again, you know, that's fine. I mean, that's what this discussion is about, you know, trying to actually, you know, come up with some form of a measuring stick. And I'll be giving you my actual measuring stick later in the show, Steve. What I think is a good rule of thumb for all of this stuff. But we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Is that 11-inch ruler that I saw you have before your measuring?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Well, here's another thing I just want to mention. There was would a conservative president today devote himself to defeating an amendment, a constitutional amendment that was proposed by a Republican senator that would restrict our involvement with the United Nations because they were afraid that the UN was engaged in what they called at the time global socialism. This president personally lobbied to rescind supports for the treaty that kept us involved with the United Nations.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Steve, because as we go through this discussion today, I'm sure a couple times this will come up. Okay, I think one of the biggest and most profound steps to the left was the election of 100 years ago this year of Woodrow Wilson, and, you know, who brought in the League of Nations, which led to the United Nations and all these entanglements with foreign countries. But, hey, we have a caller, huh?
We do, and we'll get you in just 1 second. I just want to finish my comment on this Republican president. He defeated his own party's recommendation that we disinvolve with the United Nations, and 2 years later on Election Day, and this guy, by the way, was President Eisenhower, he won a landslide victory. Now, a Republican president today who was for the United Nations would get drummed out of the party, let alone voted for.
Busters Radio.